Raise your hand if you ever hated on somebody. Be honest, it's just me and you here. Okay, now put your hand down because you ain't never hated on anyone as much as Philip has. You see, Philip was a scientist, bona fide genius, but he had a problem. And his problem's name was Albert Einstein. You see, Albert Einstein was also a scientist, and you probably know his name, but you probably never heard of Philip. And that's why Philip hated him. Listen closely. See, Philip was an experimental physicist who furthered the world of science through experimentation. Everybody said, damn, Philip, you smart. Philip said, it ain't no thing, it ain't no thing. All you gotta do is experiment. Work hard. Somebody said, excuse me, I'm sorry to cut you off, Philippe. But he said, my name's Philip. He said, my fault, Phil. Look, y'all gotta come next door. There's this dude named Einstein who coming up with the craziest theories. He's a theoretical physicist, a person who furthers the world of science through theories. Everybody said, ooh, this dude named Albert Einstein takes the science world by storm because guess what? He's a bona fide genius as well. Philip said, well, okay, how smart is this Albert Einstein? Albert Einstein swooped in. He said, say my name 3 times like the boogeyman. Philip said, what? Albert said, don't worry about it. You wouldn't get it. Everybody said, oh. Albert said, okay. Well, here are my theories. I'm just gonna pass them around. Everybody check them out. Everybody checking them out. They said, wow, Albert, these are incredible. What prestigious laboratory do you work at? Albert said, no, I don't work in a lab. I'm just a low-level patent clerk. And this amazed everyone because Albert Einstein coming up with all these amazing theories and he's not working in the most prestigious labs. So Albert takes the science world again by storm. And this is when Philip get to hating. Philip comes out and says, well, how amazing are Albert's theories really? He starts showing some doubt into Albert's theories. But genius, no genius. Philip never disputes Albert's theories. You know that Albert's right. Albert said, okay, well, if you got a problem with my theories, Philip, why don't you just debate me in front of all these other scientists? Everybody said, well, that's a pretty good idea. Philip said, too late, it's time to debate. Philip said, look, all I'm saying is, since Albert's a theoretical physicist, he's not experimenting enough. So how do we know if he's right or not? Also, here's where things start to get wicked. Albert's Jewish. Everybody said, what that got to do with anything? Yeah, there's something I forgot to tell you. Philip was a German scientist around World War I, World War II times. He really loved his country. So he just starts getting racist. He empties the clip on Albert, saying, even if a goat is born amongst thoroughbred horses in the stable, he'll never be a thoroughbred horse. He's just a goat. Somebody says, well, I'd never. Another person says, God, it's getting serious. Albert Einstein says, oh, you finished? What you gotta understand is Albert Einstein was a vibe. He said, okay, well, back to my theory. Albert keeps his science as if to say, yeah, you can do all this, but you still gotta prove me wrong. Albert says the theory of relativity is simple, and I'll give you an exact quote so I don't butcher it. He says, when you're courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. But when you sit on a red hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity. Everybody said, wow. Give that guy a Nobel Prize. Philip said, now hold on, y'all. Just because Albert a little clever and funny don't mean y'all gotta give him a Nobel Prize. Where Dave Chappelle at? Let me give him a prize. Everybody said, who Dave Chappelle? He said, man, y'all gonna get that one in the future. I'm just saying, he Jewish, I'm German, he not smart like me. Somebody said, Felipe, you still here? We already gave him the prize. Philip, no, you that same guy from earlier. You messing my name up on purpose. Hold on, y'all. Albert can't be smart, he's Jewish. Albert said, dispute my theories. Philip said, Albert said, where my prize at? Now, many people may be wondering, is Philip just racist or is he a hater? Now, I think two things can be true at the same time, especially since, in my opinion, racism and hating come from a similar place, ignorance and the inability to look at oneself. In fact, Philip discredited another scientist named Wilhelm, who was German, not Jewish. His excuse that time was, Wilhelm used a device that I invented, so it's basically like I did all the work. I should get the Nobel Prize. They gave it to William. But at the end of the day, Philippe found his home working as a top scientist for that guy with the mustache. Germany then loses the war. Philippe was old, so they said, okay, you can go live off in a farm. As for Albert Einstein, he becomes one of the most famous scientists and really people in history. And look, it's Winston Churchill, and the rest was history.